difficulty. We were joined by some ghosts of the past, but we were just getting started. Again, welcome to all. We'll let you rejoin shortly, but with no further ado, Catherine, let's try this for the third time. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for joining us in this Meet the Giant session. We would love to know what is exactly your role, since when have you joined HSBC in this position, and what is your drive to have joined this company in this position?
Yes, thanks for having me, Nathan. So I'm leading the sustainability team in Germany, and I'm part of the global function within HSBC Group. I've joined HSBC 4 years ago, and before I worked on the investor side and worked on ESG strategies in regard of the investment activities of the Protestant Church. And beforehand, I already worked for HSBC some years before. So I have a long track record in the finance department, and I'm in sustainability management for more than 10 years now. So I guess we started in 2008 with sustainability at HSBC.
Thanks, Catherine. Maybe to dive deeper in the topic, and thank you again for joining. Those who are rejoining us, don't hesitate to let us know where you're tuning in from. It's always amazing to discover a little bit more about you. Don't hesitate to also ask questions directly in the chat, whichever platform you're tuning in from, and we'll pick up as many as possible in the Q&A session that will come a little later. Catherine, maybe we are very curious to understand what are the different levies of action that exist for you in your position of head of corporate sustainability at HSBC Deutschland. What is your playing field? How big is your playing field, and what can you do to steer such a large ship towards sustainability?
HSBC Germany is an entity within the wider HSBC Group, which is based in London and in Hong Kong. So most of our revenues are currently generated in Asia. So we are a big player in Asia, but in the rest of the world as well. And I guess we are the biggest bank in Europe. So in regard of sustainability strategies, I believe that we have two core pillars within our strategy. One is our core business, sustainable finance, and the other one is our future skills activities, meaning community investment activities. And then we have the bottom line, which is about our own operations, how we drive our own operations. I guess we will come back to this point later this evening. And the way we support the communities within environmental programs that we support globally.
And is there maybe on this, what is the relationship between HSBC Deutschland and the rest of the operation? Because I imagine that HSBC Deutschland represents a significant fraction of the operation, but not all of them. Do you also have vis-a-vis in France, in Hong Kong, in the UK, in other markets?
Yes, exactly. So we have a regional meeting set up, so to say. So we are engaged within our region, and then we are engaging within the region to the wider group. And in regard of our targets and our strategy settings, we engage with our chief of staff of sustainability, which is Celine Herweyer. She joined HSBC 2 or 3 months ago, so I haven't met her in person yet, but we will have a town hall next week. So it's a very dynamic landscape at the moment, and for HSBC, it's important to be able to implement the global strategy within all the entities that HSBC is referring to. So we are 66 entities in the world. We are more than 220,000 people all around the world working for HSBC. and the sustainability function has grown over the last few years, as you can imagine. So I'm very happy to see that every unit, from finance to risk to the business units, are happy to have kind of green champions within their business unit. So, and this makes a lot of sense, because you have so much overlap within your sustainability strategy and sustainability kind of communicative activities. So you need with other units of the bank. So it makes a lot of sense to get engaged within your own network. Yeah.
Of course. Speaking of this, I'm curious to know, how has HSBC, then I imagine global, defined sustainability for themselves? And more largely, the question is, how does a bank define sustainability? Where do you identify the different points of action, the different low-hanging fruits, and the different priorities for your institution to be coherent with of course, sustainability, but also the other obligations of a bank?
Yeah, well, I guess first of all, it's a strategic duty to take a closer look at the environment. So how is the world evolving? And sustainability has always been an issue that we considered, but probably banks were some kind of late in regard of incorporating sustainability activities in their core business. So probably latest, or when we take a closer look at the Paris Agreement, we have realized that this momentum was a kind of shifting point for the financial industry, because Mark Carney and Michael Bloomberg, in their role as Bank of England chief and in their roles within the G20 meetings, they drove the momentum in regard of a sustainable finance agenda, and realized that that climate risk has a financial risk for financial institutions. And this has been a very new way of thinking for the banking industry. So probably, first of all, sustainability was always about the environmental and the social aspects, but not about our core business and how we cover risks. And not only risk, if you talk about risk, there's always an opportunity, of course, and the world is so dynamic and changing. We need to realize that we need to change the way we used to work. So this is what I would say. And the Paris Agreement was the kind of starting point.
Absolutely. And we hear today a lot of talks around around ESG being a new, more elaborate format of assessing the different needs and the different impacts of an organization, particularly financial institutions. Do you use this framework yourself to assess HSBC Deutschland's impact? And do you have specific criteria that you focus on, or that you weight more than others?
Yes, exactly. So the ESG rationale is a way we started to set up our strategy. So if you talk about sustainability on a corporate level, it's always about ESG, and it's easy because it's an investor wording that most of our investors are familiar with. So, and this is an important issue from my perspective as well. So you need to have the same language if you talk about sustainability, and sustainability is such a broad buzzword. So no one is really aware what it is about. So ESG is some more specific. And talking about probably disclosures, or the way we talk about, and we want to show our sustainability development, how we evolved during the last few years. I guess that there are different metrics that you can consider, and for us, it has always been the GRI initiative where we are familiar with. It has always been with the Carbon Disclosure Project, but at the same time, we need to consider stock exchanges as well. And as I said earlier before, Asia is an important market for us. So Hong Kong Stock Exchange is an important trigger to consider, and how to report on our financial and non-financial figures. And then I would add that the metrics that come from the World Economic Forum, because you have leaders that are talking about sustainability and climate change, you need to consider the World Economic Forum as well. And this is an important stakeholder place for us too.
So in the end, there is a few frameworks that you follow and that you have to respect for your business results specifically, because that would not give you access to certain platforms that you need to achieve your objectives.
Yes, exactly. And at the same time, for Europe, as you might know, the European Commission has set up an ambitious plan, the EU Sustainable Finance Agenda. And this is all about transparency and disclosure. And for the European market, we have probably some of the most strongest regulations for the moment in regard of sustainability. This is taking a lot of time from my daily business and daily work at the moment as well. So we need to prepare better data. We need to be consistent in regard of our reporting strategies, and we need to define how we need to better define the way we talk about our risks and our opportunities at the same time. Yeah.
Thank you for this. One question that comes into mind that was asked on the chat already by Utku Dagist, and apologies for my horrible French accent. But given these different regulations according to different geographies or different responsibilities or things to achieve, how is the position of HSBC Germany compared to other HSBC offices, which would be maybe in somewhere that has less regulation or less stringent rules and regulations around sustainability?
Yeah.
How do you regress this or limit the risk of this?
Yeah, good point and good question. So for Europe, I'd say that France and Malta and Germany are the biggest player within the HSBC community. So we have entities there that are material for our disclosure requirements. And then, of course, we have smaller entities based in Italy, based in the Netherlands, based in Switzerland. But in regard of our sustainability metrics, we used to define that from a materiality analysis, we only, it's not only, but we used to report on 25 entities that are material within the HSBC group. So, and Germany is one of those 25 entities. So we need to report our data in regard of our operations, in regard of social and governance aspects to the group, and these data is filtered and put in and consolidated report, which is named ESG report. And this is now part of our annual report and accounts, and it's a kind of integrated report. So you don't have two reports anymore. So I'm not sure how familiar you are with the accounting standards, but there's a lot of development around financial and accounting standards. So I see that it is getting more and more to the direction that we have integrated reportings, which makes a lot of sense, of course.
Of course, that begs the question of data. How are you able to collect so much information from so many different sources to centralize it? Maybe a question already on this. How do you centralize this information? Is HSBC using spreadsheet like so many other even very large companies? Do you have already integrated system to manage the sustainability specifically?
So I would say it's both. So we have spreadsheets that are that big that you can't imagine, to be honest. But at the same time, we have requirements that we need to fulfill in regard of onboarding a client. So we have a KYC process, so know your client process. So so we as a bank, as a financial institution, do need to get a lot of information of our client before we onboard him or her or whatever. So, and at the same time, the data that we that we are creating and that we are working with is, of course, a kind of a holy cow. So we won't share the data, of course, but in regard of climate change and the question how we deal with the data that we receive from our clients, we are we rely on the data that we get from our clients. So coming back to the disclosure issues that we see for the moment in regard of the EU Action Plan, for example, and the SFDR, the Sustainable Regulation, or the new Sustainability Disclosure Regulation. So we see that there might be a gap, so that we need to report on data that we don't already have, or that we are not yet aware of, because we are kind of data user and we are not a data provider. So we are relying on the data that we get from our clients. And just to give you some more practical information, so during our loan process, for example, so we don't only ask our clients, why do you need the money, for what is the use of proceeds, the money you need. At the same time, we want to see, is the client on track in regard of climate issues? So is he considering, or is she considering climate risk? Is there a reporting is there a report in place? Is there a strategy in place? We take a look at the governance. So it's, for the moment, it's still qualitative, but we will soon be able to fill all these data into a kind of scoring model. And at the end of the day, you can see that the more proper the data is, you can be better in valuing the client's rating. So, and at the end of the day, you will have lower loan costs, or because we tend to think that the lower the risk from a client is, the better the cost of finance will look like. So, and this is an important twist that you need to realize, but we don't have yet the proof. So we believe that it is that it will look like this, but we need to work on the data and on the rationale behind those two correlations. Yeah.
Absolutely, and we, being a specialist of this kind of data collection at Plan A, we know that capturing information already within a system is already a feat and complex. Catching information from external parties, such as clients, such as service providers, such as goods and services providers in general, is also almost the next level in order to capture the scope 3 emission, the emissions that are indirectly related to a bank's activity.
Yeah.
You already jumped in the speaking of practical, you already explained one example. I would love to dive into the more practical actions that are happening at HSBC. We've already mentioned a few of the challenges that you face and a few of the opportunities that you have. I would like to start with the HSBC objective to become net zero by 2030 and allocate, and I quote, substantial investment to support this transition. Can you go a little bit more in depth for our attendees in this strategy? What are its main pillars, and where do you think, Catherine, yourself, that HSBC can move the needle to achieve this objective?
Yeah, so I mean, so first of all, we need to become a net zero bank, and the target that we set is latest until 2050 for our own operation, as you said, latest 2030. But this is tricky due to all these data issues and scope 3 emissions. How do we measure it, etc. So coming back to how do we become a net zero bank, we need to get a better idea on our financed emissions, meaning how much carbon sits within our loan portfolio. And this is not an easy work to do. So we have joined the Paris Agreement Capital Transition Assessment tool, the PACTA tool, which we don't use as a tool itself, but it helped us to think about how we can proceed in regard of our data issues. Then we have disclosed the TCFD, so we are aware of the fact that we need to consider sustainability or climate risk within our strategy and within our governance. And then we need to have a consistent standards that we are proceeding, and we are working together with PCAF for the moment. So we will be able to show within our next report that will come out how we are managing those financed emissions. And at the end of the day, this is all about probably coal. I would say it's all about our coal policies and our energy policies that we at a financial institution have. And in regard of the European context, due to the fact that we as a bank will need to report on a special KPI named the green asset ratio, see a kind of out factor the next year that banks will refer to. And this is a lot of stress, to be honest, for the moment, because we have no learning curve. We are right at the start. We don't have any examples how we can measure these new KPIs and metrics. But it's good to see that there's development, and that due to the fact that you have more transparency, everyone has a possibility to avoid kind of greenwashing, of course. So this is the angle in regard of the net zero banking issue. And at the same time, we know that we need to convince our clients that they need to proceed a kind of transition journey. So this is the other question. We need to convince our clients that they change, even the hard to abate sectors, which are difficult, of course, as you can imagine. And then we need to unlock new climate solutions. So we need to have an idea of new technologies. So what about CCS? What about CCU? What about infrastructure instruments in regard of the public and the private sector? What instruments do we need? And so this is a huge agenda, I would say, but it's probably that I believe that when we look back in 20 years, we will realize that we kind of rode momentum, but it's a hard way for the moment, even for banks.
Oh, of course, and almost even, especially for banks which are at the center of the economic system today, and so they have both a role of implementing sustainability, but also convincing the rest of the organizations that they work with. So the client relationship, I imagine, must be very important to achieve this net zero. I do have two follow-up questions on this. One being on this client relationship. Do you see certain types of client being more inclined to go on this transition journey with you, HSBC, or not? And another question is, how do you see the carbon capture, carbon storage, compensation, and offsetting place? How big is the space that it would take within the HSBC strategy?
Well, so in regard, so I will start with the first question. So in regard of the way we, what was it? In regard of how we handle the, sorry, I'm sorry.
So no problem. There was a lot of words on my part.
Yeah, okay.
So the first question would be around the client relationship, and are there clients that are more keen than others? And the second one would be, what is the place of the tools that allow you to become net zero rather than decarbonizing, such as offsetting, such as carbon capture and storage that you mentioned prior?
And now I got it. So I believe that there will be clients that are out of the curve and some are very much advanced. So we see some difference, but intersectoral. So you can't say that one sector is better than the other. But in the end, it always depends on the people behind a company. So it's a leadership issue. It's about capabilities and probably the push of a company stakeholders and initiatives that companies are facing for the moment. But the push can come from banks as well. But I was very surprised when I read a report probably last year about the question. German CFOs have been asked, so from where comes the push in regard of sustainability? And the push from banks have not been named. So this was really, I was kind of surprised that I've read this, because I assumed that because I believe banks are crucial in regard of a sustainable development. And if we don't ask those questions, who's the one who's asking them? these ones. So this in regard of companies and the development. So I mean, there's a lot going on. So you can see from the automotive sector, for example, that some are very much advanced, others are some behind, but for other sectors as well. And in regard of offsetting issues, I think this will be a really interesting issue for the next few years, even for financial institutions. So I remember that when we started with sustainability within HSBC, so long before 2010, we used to offset our emissions because we wanted to be carbon neutral. And then we realized it makes sense to take a closer look at processes, and we set up a reduce strategy, and we set a target and wanted to reduce our carbon emissions per FTE. And we did that quite well. And since we announced the new net zero commitment, we realized we need to be better in regard of our own operations, even the Scope 3 emissions, which are really tough to handle. So, and what we are doing for the moment is to kind of baselining together with the CDP data that we have, and to take a closer look at our emissions that come from, but the figures that we are considering are always travel, it's about waste, it's about energy, it's about paper, and it's about our own consumption itself. So, and to give you some insights, some banks do still have, for example, a car fleet. Because it's part of your salary. So to have a car within a financial institution, this is a usual way of handling contracts. And so if you can imagine, and if you take a look at German streets, you will realize that the proportion of electric vehicles are rising, but it's not the daily case. And I would say that it's always an issue of your own buy decision. So I mean, climate is everyone's business. So, and you can say I'm following the strategy of my company, but for your own buy decision, we all know that from time to time sustainability is some behind. So and I wish that even in regard of cars and fleet management, we would be some more rational, or some of my colleagues could be some more rational.
Of course, and it will come through company policy implementations, yeah, and such that will drive the change, the transition. Few cities and even countries now have decided to phase out combustion cars in the next 10, 15 years, 20 years. That's going to be a development that's going to radically change, I believe, also the system, or at least reduce significantly one of the largest emissions centers still to this day, which are cars, and we have the technology already to replace it. Albeit there are some debates, of course, on the actual sustainability of electric car, but this is a debate, I think, for another day. I would like to ask you. You mentioned that in the end, your clients will end up having a better financial situation and will cut their costs should they become more sustainable. I would like to learn a little bit more about this. Do you see a correlation between sustainability and financial performance? Do sustainable investments perform better than non-sustainable ones? And you know, how do you gauge this?
I believe that sustainable companies will benefit from the cost of finance at the end of the day. And I'm aware of a couple of research that recently came out. So if you talk about investing strategies, you see that companies that have a sustainability strategy, that are sustainable, do perform better than others. Sorry. And from a financing perspective, I believe that a company can benefit from a sustainability strategy at the same time, because the cost of financing are reducing significantly because the risk is lower. And if you can manage to incorporate the climate issue within our risk assessment, and we will soon be able to do this properly, not only from a qualitative aspect, but from a quantitative aspect, it makes sense for everyone at the end of the day, because it's less risk for a bank, it's less risk for our balance sheet, and it's cheaper for our clients.
Bless you. Do you feel, maybe a cheeky question, do you feel optimistic for the future? Do you see you're in a position where you see a lot of positive and a lot of challenges at the same time? Are you confident for the HSBC objective and more generally speaking for our planet's sustainable transition?
For the bank, I'm really optimistic, because we managed to have a new group chief of sustainability. It's a global function. It's Celine is part of our group executive committee, so this is where it should be. So and it was a hard work to get sustainability settled there. And personally I'm an optimistic person, but I have children, so I have three children, and I wish that we make the transition to a sustainable economy. And as a bank that is operating globally through supply chain, through our financing and climate solutions, climate solution instruments, I believe that we are on the journey. So I would say we are kind of on track, but I'm realistic, because I see that there's a lot of things to manage at the same time, and we need to get on speed, because we only have this decade to manage this properly. But in the end, I'm really convinced that we have with our strategy and our targets that we will manage it, and we will need to convince our clients at the same time. But another aspect that I found very important is the skills aspect and the capabilities in regard of green skills. So I see that there is a lack of green skills. So I, from time to time, realize that when I'm talking about ESG, about sustainability with my colleagues, there are usually one or two who are asking me, what is ESG? What does it mean? Can you give me some insights in regard of the sustainability agenda? And if universities are able to include sustainability aspects within the curriculum for business administration, for economics, for whatever, it really will make it some more easier for the future generation to get a step into those companies, and to be a kind of change maker for sustainability. And this is a long journey. So the capability issue is really, really a hurdle and a challenge from my perspective.
Absolutely, we see something similar happening also at Plan A when we have conversation with prospect and clients. We also see the level rising very quickly. The upskilling and the understanding of these frameworks and technicalities is also going up. Maybe a question coming from the audience as we slowly edge towards the end of the session. How do you nudge your clients to take a greener approach? And maybe I would ask my own question, how do you nudge your colleagues to take a greener approach?
Probably I start with my colleagues. So nudging is a really interesting factor. So what we are doing at HSBC is that we have created a climate action network. So this is the formal wording for this kind of group. And we set up network events in regard of sustainability. So about nutrition infos, about fair fashion. So this is my personal highlight, fair fashion and supply chains. How can we do better in regard of fashion? I'm a supporter of the Fashion Revolution initiative. And I believe fashion is important for every one of us. But these communities help us to better connect globally. And at the same time, we while we are engaging together, we are able to set our own goals and make the world some more better locally. And in the end, it's a global pitch then. So this is from the nudging aspect and angle. But as you can imagine, so if you talk about nutrition, So there are always losers and there are winners. So it's really a difficult debate. I don't know why, but usually everything that goes along with nutrition, everyone has his or her own opinion. So, and then in regard of our clients, I mean, if you are talking about financing conditions and cost of finance, you have a nudging aspect as well. So if you convince a client that it makes sense to think about sustainability and to implement it within your strategy, and not only implement it, but implement it properly, and to have stuff around sustainability, at the end of the day, this is an angle to make the world for change as well.
Thank you for this very inspiring answer. I wanted to ask you a question that also came through one of the chats. How big is your Green Champions team, your climate action network? How do you is growing this group a strategic objective for you? Is this something that helps the transition within your company?
Yes, it does, but there are always differences locally. So in Germany, the community is about 40 people for the moment, and we have a kind of conference site where we are posting interesting links or events or Netflix series that are of interest or that might be of interest. And the global community is much bigger. I have not checked the current figures, but I remember that it's about 2,000 or 3,000 people who are engaging within the also climate action networks. And in the end, we are reaching out to far more people. And within the second week of the autumn holidays, we will have our first climate action festival, where we developed a really nice agenda, and it will be about, I'm not sure if you have heard of En-ROAD. So this is a modeling tool to get an idea on the different drivers in regard of climate change. So there are different modeling activities that you can take a closer look at. So we will have En-ROAD sessions, and we will have a session on nutrition. We will have sessions on fair fashion. This is what I suggested to do, and this helps us at the end of the day to stay tuned, to be a team, and to learn from each other.
Excellent. Thanks so much. And maybe one last question from the audience, because I'm very curious to know what is the biggest obstacle, you have faced during the sustainability operation, or to implement the sustainability operation of HSBC so far?
So I'd say that so if you take a look at a classical banker, I'm not sure whether you have a special picture is coming up in your head if you're thinking about a banker, an investment banker or whatever. So if you are not used to a discussion that is kind of broad, because you have not yet get in touch with sustainability issues, or if you have not even thought about it, a kind of nature reaction is that you are kind of reluctant, and change and sustainability management is a big change management process. So you need to get out of your comfort zone. So what I realized is that there's a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of some of my clients are still superstitious. Is this the right wording? So they are not really, they are aware of the fact that we need to change, but it's probably they have not realized that they need to take it seriously. So I would say this. And at the end of the day, it's all about, and this is a nice wording, what I really like from my colleague Robert, he usually used to say, it's all about ethic and batik. So if you know batik, so sustainability is not about ethic and batik. It's far more than this. But you need to convince bankers, and this is really tough from time to time. Yeah, even though I'm a banker as well, but it makes a difference where you start your journey. If you are close to M&A activities, or if you are close to deal flow that is really succeeding your way of working, probably sustainability issues don't really tackle you that much, but yeah, we will see.
Right, it's an ongoing challenge that we are all facing today, and this is really great to see how the point of this Meet the Giants series is to show how not just individuals but also larger, very larger, much larger companies are able to make a change, trying to see beyond, of course, the criticism or the condemnation that can arise. The point of Plan A and the point of this event is to really reunite, reconcile these approaches to tackling this multifaceted issue that is climate change. Catherine, thank you so much for coming and enlightening us on your activities and what's going on within the inner workings of HSBC Germany. And global. We've learned about both and even beyond. Thank you so much to all of the participants as well, the attendees who have come and tuned in to listen to us on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and live. Thank you so much. We are organizing next month the next edition of Meet the Giants. We are very excited actually to welcome the giant Hermes. The people who are doing deliveries and who are delivering a lot of the packaging that has also exploded during these last couple of years. So we're exploring different industries, but always with the same objective to really learn from the best in class, from Katharine Wagner, who's at the steering of this change. Catherine, thank you so much for attending. It was a pleasure to have you and a very enjoyable conversation we had.
Thank you so much too. And I really enjoy your newsletter from Lubomila. Really nice to read this one. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yes, the message might have appeared a couple of times. Don't hesitate to follow us on all the social medias you can come up with at Planet Earth. Follow us, get in touch. If you have further questions, don't hesitate to reach out to hi@planet.earth. We'll try to transmit the question to Catherine, get some answers back, and get back to you as soon as possible. And only left for me is to wish everyone a fantastic evening or morning or lunchtime, depending where you're tuning in from. And please stay sustainable, and we see each other in a month's time for a next edition of Meet the Giants. Have a fantastic evening, everyone.
Thanks, Nathan. Bye.